We're now up to the Mishnah on Daf Chava. Nechasim sheyesh lahem achrayus. Now, karka is called achrayus because it has what's called betichus, which means that it's reliable. You know, it's not something that moves from place to place. So, for example, in shibudim, a shibud of the malva onto the karka, the lova is karka. And how do you acquire ownership of a karka? Nikne b'kesef u'b'shtar b'chazok. And the Gemara is going to go through each one of these three and find a source for them. However, nechasim she'ein lehem achrayus, these are metaltalin, that are movable objects. Einam niknim ela b'meshicha. Their kinyan is only a kinyan meshicha. Now the Mishnah is going to introduce what's called a kinyan agav. Nechasim she'ein lehem achrayus niknim im nechasim sheish lehem achrayus b'kesef b'shtar v'chazok. So what is a kinyan agav? It means that if I want to be makna to you metaltalin, and let's say it's an awesome volume of metaltalin, so you can't go around doing a mashiach on every single kli or every animal that you want to sell. So what you do is your makna karka, which is called nechasim sheyesh lehem achrayus, and agav the nechasim sheyesh lehem achrayus, your makna nechasim she'ein lehem achrayus. So you use a kinyan kesef shtar chazaka to be makna both karka and the kalim or the metaltalin that's on the karka. Now, whether it has to be on the karka or not is going to be the major sugya for today. Now, notice amongst the three kinyanim that are valid for this operation of agav, you have kesef shtar chazaka. These are not kinyanim that would work in metaltalin, but since you were kona, you were makna the metalton agav the karka, therefore you use the kinyoni karka, and through the kinyoni karka as your vehicle, you are makna metalton. Zokikin es hanechos b'sheish lehem achrayus lishav alein. We have a principle that ein nishbon ala karkos, and the source for that is a Gemara Bava Kama Daf Tzadi Vav Hamid Beis. So normally, if I'm Toveyu Karka and you're the Nitba, you don't have to take a Shvur. However, in the case where a person was Chayiv Shvur because of a Tvias Metaltalin, then he can force the nitba to take a shvua on the karka as well, agav the metaltalin. And presumably, this is a case where there's one tvia, one claim on both karka and metaltalin. And since on the metaltalin part he's chayav a shvua the nitba, therefore take a shvua even on the karka. Gemara asks bekesef minol, how do we know the karka is nicknamed bekesef amar chizkiya makra? Pasuk Yirmiyah Perek Lamed Beis, we're always coming back to this parsha. Sados b'kesev yiknu. Now, you can't get more explicit. It says Sados b'kesev yiknu. However, the next part of the pasuk says v'kosuv b'sefer v'chasom. That is a shtar, that's sign. So therefore, the Gemara immediately objects. V'ema de'ika shtar. In this Hava meaning, the Gemara thinks that you need A plus B in order to be makona karka. You need both shtar and kesef. Tichsiv v'ksov uksov v'sefer chasov. So Gemara answers, iksiv yiknu l'basof. If the pasuk had been written as sados ba'kesef uksov v'sefer chasov uk v'yiknu, so the yiknu would be going on both the kesef and the shtar kidikamrit. Then I would agree to you that you need both kesef and shtar. But hashta, now that we read the pasuk meticulously, the chsiv yiknu meikara, it says at the beginning when it's talking about kesef, sodos by kesef yiknu. So the yiknu means that all you need is kesef kani. So then, why does the pasuk finish up and say ksov v'sefer chasov? And the answer is el raya bi'almu. Shtar is not a shtar kiyah, but a shtar raya. Omar Rav Lo Shanu, when do we say the Kesu could be Kona Karka? That's when the Smichus Das. El Mokum Shein Kosman is a Shtar. It's a location where they sell Karka. They don't write up a Shtar. If it's standard procedure in that particular locale that they write a shtar whenever they're selling karka is lo kana, then there's no smichas das because he really wants the shtar. Keep in mind the shtar will serve as a raya, so he very much wants the shtar. So he doesn't have smichas das on kesef. He wants a shtar. However, if it's totally in his kpeda, meaning he's very, concerned about how to prove and establish that he was kona this karka, then iparish, if on the other hand he says explicitly that I'm willing to buy this karka with kesef or shtar, but I don't need a shtar, is parish. Then it's meaningful and it's effective, and it'll be kona v'kesef even without a shtar. Kiha, the Gemara tells a story. The Rav Idi bar Ovin, Ki Zovin Ara, when he purchased a piece of karka Omer, he said to the mocher, I be'ina v'kaspka ikni, I be'ina b'shtara ikni. I will either purchase this karka with kesef or with shtar. You'll have to write me the shtar. What does that mean? I be'ina v'kaspka ikni. What he meant to say is that if it's in my best interest to clinch the kinyan through kesef, then so shall it be. If the mocher will now say, you know what, I want to back out of the deal, the price of karka went up, or whatever it might be, then he will not be able to be choser bo and back out of the deal, because I was willing to clinch the deal, says Lokech, with kesef. So the very moment that I paid up for the karka, the kinyan was clinched, and he can't be choser bo. I've already paid for the karka. If I decide I can be kona with a shtar, and what was his intention when he said, if I want to, I'll be kona v'shtar, that if I want to back out of the deal and I want to be mavatal lemekach, I can do so. Why? Because I insisted on a shtar and I never received the shtar. Now we go on to kinyan shtar. Minolan, what's the basis? Now again, we're going back to Yomi Lamed Beis, from whence we derive in the Bible that you kona a piece of karka with shtar. Elim, if you're going to argue v'ksova sefer chesova et edim, when Yirmiyah said, and based on a nevuah from a Kodesh Baruch, that after the Churban there'll be a time when we could buy sados and we'll write up shtaros, and the shtar will be a shtar kinyan. So the Gemara immediately rejects this. We've already established that shtar written in the pasuk is a shtar raya bi'almahu. It's not a shtar kinyan. So what's the source for a shtar kinyan? Ella mehacha. Again, in the same chapter in Yirmiyah Lamed Beis, but now we're really going backwards about 10 psukim, and it says va'ekach es sefer mikna. I mean, you can't get more explicit than that. The Navi calls the shtar a sefer mikna. And Yirmiyah was kona karka with that shtar. So we see the kinyan shtaros is operative in karkos. Omar Shmuel. Now, Shmuel wants to say that not every shtar is effective to effectuate a kinyan. El v'shtar matan. If he's giving away his karka as a gift gratis, then he can makna him the karka through a shtar. Aval b'mecher, but if he's selling the karka, lo kana, the buyer will not clinch the kinyan or validate the kinyan Achiyite lo dam, until the lokeach will pay up with a check or cash to the mocher. And that means that a mocher is not gomer daito to be mocked as something if he didn't get the money. He wants the money. The shtar is worthless. Mosiv Rav Nuna asks the kasha from a brisa, kasha on Shmuel, b'shtar ketzad. When you say that a soda can be acquired through a shtar, what is the nusach of the shtar? Kosavlo, the mocher writes the lokech, because every shtar has to be written from the dasam eschayev. In a case of mechira, that's the mocher. Al niyar al cheres al pishaim ben shova pruta. So the shtar doesn't have to be worth anything in terms of its physical parchment. Sodai mechura lecha, sodai nesuna lecha, harezu mechura nesuna. I mean, it says explicitly here that shtar is effective, whether it be mecher or whether it be matana. And Shmuel says that in mecher it's not enough to write a shtar. Just 1 second. Right? This is no Gemira's das until he gets the money. And where it answers who, this Rav Hamnuna, Mosiv lo umafarik. He asked the kash and he answers the kash. Now, if you're selling a bad field, what's called a sada grua, then the mocher would want to be makna to lokeach very quickly and urgently because he's afraid the lokeach will back down. And therefore, he's so desperate to sell it that he has a Gemira's das to be makna with a shtar, even if he doesn't get kesef. Whereas normally, if it was a healthy, valuable piece of karka, he would hold out for kesef. Rav Ashi Omar, Rav Ashi comes up with an alternative answer to the kasha that we asked from the Bryce onto Shmuel. The Bryce is not talking about two different stories, one of mecher, one of matana, but rather we're one case, and b'matana bikesh litnolo. In other words, the entire discussion in the Brisa is about matana. Even though, again, in the Lashon of Brisa, the Lashon Ashtar is recorded in the Brisa, says Sadi Mechura Lecha. So the Gemara asks, Lama Kosavlos Lashon Mecher. So why do you write the Shtar Sadi Mechura Lecha if it's only a matana, gratis? Kedeliapos is Kocha. He wants to strengthen the position of the recipient, and therefore he is explicitly writing that he's giving this shtar, and this shtar generates what's called achrayim. So this has to do with the laws of shibudim, of halva, and what it means is that in event that the sale is invalid for whatever reason, then the lokeach can get his money back. But not only can he get his money back from the mocher, but moreover, let me just get the names right here. There's a nosein and a makabel, and the nosein. Oh, I got it now. So the nosein gives a piece of karka b'matana to the makabel, but he writes him a shtar. And why is that? So let's say the nosein has an outstanding chov. So his bal chov is going to come, and he can collect from the lekuchos. Now the lokech is out of field. So by writing a shtar, that guarantees the lokech that in event that karka has a lien on it and therefore is going to be confiscated, that the mocher has responsibility as achrayus to make sure that the lokech will get back his money. Uvechazaka minalan. How do we know that you can be kona karka v'chazaka? Omar Chizki, Omar Kra. The pasuk says in Yirmiyah Perik Mem. Right until now, we're in Yirmiyah Perik Lamed Beis. Ushvu bi'orechem asher tifastam. Tifastam is a lashon of chazaka, of tfisa. Vamet fastam b'yeshiva. By dwelling and living in the city, that's considered a kinyan chazak. So when we speak about yeshiva b'karka, meaning settling down in the karka, that itself is chazak. That's a shimush. The Be'er Rav Yishmael Tana, he had that alternative source. V'yirishtem also v'yishavtem ba. But may yirashtem v'yeshiva. How are you quoted a plat of land in Eretz Yisrael through a kinyan chazak? The Mishnah has kinyan agav v'nechasim she'elem achrayus. Oh, 1 second. Before we get to agav, we're now talking about kinyan metaltal. How do we know that Mashiach is a valid kinyan for metaltal? The siv v'chi timkaru mimkar lamisecha o kano miyad amosecha. Dovra niknem yad liyad. So the kinyan for metaltalin is derived from this pasuk here because of the word miyad, and that indicates that we're talking about a dovra niknem miyad liyad, meaning metaltalin, and its kinyan is mashicha, in which the object is transferred from the rishus of the mocher to the rishus of the lokeach. Okay. Now the Gemara has a problem. Everything that we've said reflects the Shita Reish Lakish, that Mashiach is meaningful and valid to acquire some metalton, according to Torah law. But Rabbi Yochanan disagrees. The Omer Torah, Tvar Torah Mos Konos, meaning that Mashiach is not Kona in the case of metalton, is Michael Meimer. The Mishnah seems to be teaching that a kinyan Mashiach is Kona min Torah. So the Gemara explains now the Shita of Rabbi Yochanan. Tana, the Tana of Mishnah, Takantu the Rabbanan Ketani. He was referring to the Takonis Chachamim, even though Dvar Torah Mos Konos, but the Rabbanan made a Takana that Mos alone will not be Koda. You have to have a Mashiach. And the reason Chachamim were Masakin to basically undermine the Kinyan Mos in the case of a Taltalin is because what happens if the Mocha already signed the deal and the money was paid, but the Lokech has not yet received the actual object that he acquired. And now it's sitting up in the storage room. We used to call it a baidim. I'm really dating myself anyway, up in the attic. And that's where the mocher is holding it onto it until the Lokech finally comes to Lesof, to pick it up. In the meantime, a fire breaks out, and the mocher couldn't care less. He's not going to go out of his way, stick his neck out on the line in order to save the object from the sreifa, because it's not his. He already got paid for it. He was coded. I would say the Lokech paid for it, and the Lokech was coded. Okay, right now it happens to be situated in the storehouse of the mocher. The Mishnah says, now we get to Kinyan Agav Minani Mili. What's the source in the Torah for Kinyan Agav Ramachizkiel and Kra? The Pasuk by Yehoshaphat and his children. And Yehoshaphat gave and bequeathed to his children. It says, Vayitem Lemaviem Matanos. Now, after Matanos, the Gemara doesn't quote the whole pasuk. It's a pasuk in Divrei Yomi Beis. It says, Rabos, many gifts, Kesef, Zov, Umigdanos. These are all metaltalin. Im, together with Are Mitzuros, the Yehuda, with walled cities in Judea. So he was makna the karka through the kinyan on the Arim, meaning on the cities, on the karka, and that's called the kinyan aga. The Gemara is a suffix. Where are the metaltalin that you're being makna aga of the karka? If it's tziburim, it means that the metaltalin you're being makna are located, situated on the karka. Or do we say lo? We don't need tziburim, so I can be makna you karka here in Eretz Yisrael, and at the same time be makna you metaltalin that I have stashed away in Thailand. And that's called lo be'inan tziburim. Omer Rav Yosef Toshma, I'm going to prove from Mishnah in Peah. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Karka Kol Shehu. In other words, Rabbi Akiva is saying that in order to be makna a metaltalin of karka, all you need is a karka koldu. And a karka koldu is such a small piece of karka that it can't hold the metaltalin that he's being makna. Let's say he's selling him 100 barrels, and it's going to be agav a small piece of karka. It must be that you don't require tziburim. But in any event, Rabbi Kiva wants to give us a list of the validity of a kinyan on kolshu. Number one, chayv b'peah. So you have tefua that grew in a very small area, and you're still chayv b'peah, even though there's hardly anything there, for the aniyim. Very small amount of shibolim. Bivikurim. So you have one of the 7 minim shenishtavchu min Yisrael grew and developed, and what you have to do is you have to bring the first fruits to the Beis Hamikdash, and the Mishnah is pointing out that for that purpose, all you need is a karka koldu. So the chiyuv of hafrashas bikurim and bringing the bikurim to Yerushalayim, that whole obligation is operative and is machayev, how do you say in English, and generates an obligation, even though the karka is a koldu.